Okay. Now, just to recap what MVC stands for, it is Model View Controller Framework, right? So, again, the background with which this comes up is that whenever you have uh, a framework, which not a framework, just a concept of dealing with dealing with an user interface, what you have available is the client side web browser, and on the server side you have your code. Now, just for a moment, if you forget that we have something of MVC architecture in place in the industry today, and just try to see in a very rudimentary way how we can accomplish this, then what we have in hand is that a UI which you can render dynamically, that is with uh, dynamic parameters using a JSP, and on the server side you can have a servlet. Now, if you go with that, the servlet receives two inputs, right? If you remember the do get method or the do post method, it has HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response objects. Now, this request object has everything you have you have given as input on the UI, but you have to retrieve each of them one by one, right? And then you have to go to your business layer, and same place in the servlet, either you have to forward to a different method or you have to write the logic there, and then once you have done that, you have to go to the particular view. That logic is also there in the servlet. So one by one, everything is at one particular place. Now, this is fine if I am writing a hello world application or something small enough to show to you, but think from enterprise perspective. I mean, if a class goes on for 2000 lines, something like this, it becomes a hodgepodge, and over time the maintainability decreases. So that's why this model view controller is there, which basically separates three important parts of an application. So controller is something which is similar to an action class, okay, in struts. It takes care of your business needs, so all the business logic can be here. It is the, what do you say, it is the orchestrated. It will get the data from the model. Okay, so model is whatever data you have entered in the screen. So say if you have a user screen where you're trying to create a new user, and your username, password, etc., etc., and all of these are a part of a form, user form. Now that particular Pojo class, whatever is there, which is representing this user form, that Pojo is nothing but the model. Okay. Now view is something which you are showing in the UI. So once you click on submit, and then it will show a UI, or when you're loading the page, at that time it will show a UI. So the way to render it is that you call a particular method and then it gets rendered. So that particular thing is also like separated, that concern. So it's in a JSP, and from the controller you just call it. Okay. So the thing is that controller, it uses model and view. Okay. It uses a model and view. So this is what you call, since it uses a model and view, it is called as not called as, this is what I am calling it as orchestrator. Something which orchestrates the business logic, orchestrates the entire flow. Okay. Now this is how it works. Now coming back, and now I'll explain how it integrates. So you have this front controller pattern. This is a design pattern. Okay. Now this has nothing to do with actual this controller. Okay. This is just a design pattern, which means that you don't have to deal with the entire set of different controllers, or different action classes, or different features or components which are available down. You as a component deal with another component. So there is one component, and that deals with the second component. So to deal with the second component, you have this front controller. Okay, so you always interact with this front controller via all the APIs, and the front controller takes care of all your dispatching needs. Okay, so it gets the work done for you from the second layer of command, and then it gives back the details to you. Okay, so that's what front controller stands for. Now, so Spring MVC is also, and even in struts, so Spring MVC is designed around this front controller pattern. Okay, the Spring MVC is designed on front controller pattern. So you have this front controller. Okay, now this front controller is nothing but in Spring, that is a dispatcher servlet. So in the sense that there's a class which is given by the Spring MVC framework. That class is the fully qualified class name we'll see shortly, but that is called as dispatcher servlet. So you configure this servlet in the web.xml and say that whatever URLs you want to configure for handling by Spring MVC, that has to go through this particular dispatcher servlet. So you say that this is my particular URL, and for this URL I want to use Spring MVC. So the way to enable that is use from this front controller. So you configure this front controller, this dispatcher servlet, okay, and after that this dispatcher servlet in turn takes care of finding the appropriate controller for you on the basis of the request mapping. So whatever is the URL in the request, like say /user /login, etc., on that basis we try to find we try to find like which is the right controller. The dispatcher servlet is the one which gets invoked first, and that passes the flow to the next level of command, which is a controller. Controller gets the work done from it, and then it sends the result back to the servlet. Servlet then routes it back to the user. So that is the entire flow. So you have a JSP, okay. From the JSP, once you hit the servlet, okay. Now that is a dispatcher servlet. From the JSP you hit the dispatcher servlet. Now from the dispatcher servlet you go to the appropriate controller, and to do this we have this request mapping handler configuration, and we're going to look into it, so don't worry about it. From here we go to like say we have this business logic, we go to the view. Now from the view, which is nothing but the JSP, we send this response back to the dispatcher servlet, okay, and from the dispatcher servlet back to the user, okay. So this is how the flow is. Any questions till now? Are you guys okay? Understanding till now? Guys, is it clear? Just let me know if it is not, and we can discuss. Shala, is it okay with you? Shravan? Okay, so let's move forward. Now let's come back to our actual code. Okay, and then you can get more of an idea. We'll go back to the PDF also. Now this is one particular project which we have, and here we have this pom.xml. Okay, now in this pom.xml, if you see, this is just a normal Spring MVC project. So whenever you open this pom.xml, I just want to show you the dependencies, etc., not more than that. So here if you see, Spring Core is required, Spring Web is required, okay, and Spring Web MVC. These three jars are required for the Spring framework. So once you've imported it, let's see what else is required. So your application, since it's a web application, the most important file, and I've been repeating it like 1,000 times because it is that much important, is web.xml. So if you see this web.xml, what configurations we have? We have that you have servlet mapping. So it says that if you have this particular URL pattern as /, it means that any request which comes to this particular web application, the MVC-dispatcher is the one which is going to handle it. This is the servlet name, and this servlet name is nothing but we have configured the dispatcher servlet for that. So this is what has meaning from what I explained earlier. Now once the dispatcher servlet is there, now I need to find out the controllers, right? What we were discussing, because dispatcher servlet is just the front controller. It needs a second level of command to do the work for you, and the second level of command comes from this particular XML which is configured. So we have this servlet listener. This is nothing specific to Spring, but it is a servlet listener, and it can listen to various events such as on application startup, shutdown, etc. So this one is from the Spring framework itself. It listens at the time of startup, and it looks into a particular XML to find for the details. So the thing is that this configuration is optional. If you do not do this configuration, by default the Spring framework looks for an XML with the name of this the name is of this particular format, like say servlet name hyphen I think dispatcher or something. I'm not sure. Let me see that. It should be documented here only. Yes. See, servlet name hyphen servlet.xml. So the name has to be servlet name hyphen servlet.xml. Okay. So in our case, what is the servlet name? If we come here, the servlet name is servlet name is MVC hyphen dispatcher. So in that respect, the name has to be MVC hyphen dispatcher hyphen servlet. Okay, .xml. If you look here, it is the same name. So this was not required, but it has been included here just for a reference. Okay. Now once you have this particular if you want, you can name it something else, ab.xml, ac.xml, anything. Now if you see this particular XML which is inside Webin folder itself, it should have all the necessary controller details. Okay. Now I don't know, because of some Eclipse and Maven integration issues, such things are coming up, but I have this class in my jar. Okay. So let's not worry about this error as of now. We'll just see how it works. So if you see here, it has all the necessary configurations. So since we have gone the annotations way to design this particular work for you, you're not finding the actual controller definition, but we have defined a tag of Spring here, which is context component hyphen scan, which says that boss, this is a package name where you have to look for. This package name has all the necessary controllers and you have to load them. So let's go back to this particular package. So if we come here and see, the package name is com.abhishek.common.controller. So if I go inside this one, I have only one controller for your illustration. So the way this works is that you have this add controller. Okay. Now this add controller means it's saying that this is a controller. Okay. And it's going to handle the request with /welcome URI. Okay. So if it comes as let's say localhost :8080 /web applications context root /welcome, then this is going to come in, this controller is going to be invoked. And then using annotations, you can define whether you are going for request mapping for method get, post, etc. So that the same thing, I mean, if you want for post, you can have a different method where the request where you have put the request method dot post. Okay. Now inside this, if you see what we're doing is the model. So in Spring we have this model map which is available in the JSP also, and this model map is nothing but it holds, it's a sort of key value pairs. Okay. And and this particular data is also available in the view. So you can set these things here, and then in the Spring in the JSP side you can retrieve the value using this particular key. So this is specific to Spring framework. That's how Spring framework has made the things available for you to use it. Now if you see this return hello, what this means is that once you have executed this method, you need to forward the control to a JSP, right? To a particular view. Now that view name is what you have to return from here. So once you have executed this much and you return this particular value, what the next thing Spring MVC does is it again comes back here and checks what needs to be done, right? So what needs to be done is that is configured via this view resolver. Okay, so it's configured via this view resolver. So in this view resolver, we have put the prefix. So view resolver is the thing that um, the view can be of different types. So we are aware of only JSPs. You can have different types of views available. I mean, you can have JSPs and you can write only using JSTL, etc. etc. There's a number of things which are available there, and you can forward to different pages, different styles from here. So the thing is that if that is the case, then how does Spring MVC know? So you return that particular bean, and then here we have this internal view resolver configured, and that internal view resolver says that this is a location. So before that hello which was returned, you'll add slash webin slash pages, and then slash, then you'll have hello, and then the suffix is .jsp. So the actual value which is looked for is slash webin slash hello, because this is what was written by JSP, and then the suffix JSP, and the prefix is, I missed one part, it was pages here. So if you go to the application, this is what we will look for. Now if you come here and look for say webin pages then JSP, then you have dollar message. Now this dollar message just means that get the value from the model, and the model itself we have set the key as message and this particular thing. So this is going to return just appropriate message on the UI. So I had it done yesterday. This is the one which comes up. Okay, so localhost 2800 slash spring MVC 1.0 snapshot slash welcome. Now this is because if you go in my bin directory and then go to my web apps, then here, like if I build it using Maven, right, then it's not right now here, but that's how it comes up. So in the sense that, let me show you. So this is how you build using Maven. Okay. Now if you see, the war file which is actually created is this particular part. See? Spring MVC -1.0.snapshot.war. So what I do is that I start with server, go and put this war file directly. So not I had integrated along with my Spring with my this particular IDE also, but it got corrupted, so it's not working fine. So I started from back and just put the war file here, and it gets exploded, and then you can access it. That one also I did, but I removed it. So since it comes with that, this is a war file name, it becomes a context root. Okay, so that's what it is coming here. It's a context root, and then slash welcome, it is going to give you the MVC example. So this is a very simple example for how the Spring MVC works. So this is a Spring MVC example which you can see. Any questions till now? Okay, so I assume that the things are okay. Let's go back to the PDF, because there we have configured just a brief introduction so that you guys understand what this is all about. So let's come. So the Spring MVC framework provides model view controller architecture and ready components that can be used to develop flexible and loosely coupled web applications. This is what we've discussed till now. The MVC pattern results in separating the different aspects of logic. So business is different, UI is different, form data is different, and that's how we provide that coupling, loose coupling. So the model which actually represents a form, which actually represents the data, that encapsulates the application data, in general they will consist of POJO. So it's, as discussed earlier in Struts class also, it's just a normal POJO. The view is responsible for rendering the model data, and in general it generates HTML output that the client's browser can interpret. So in just to draw a parallel from the application which we are working on, it's a normal JSP page which they are referring to by view here. Now the controller is responsible for processing user request and builds separated model and passes it to view for rendering. So controller is basically the executor of your business logic, and it also has a reference to model in view, and that's how it's able to generate the proper output for you. The Spring Web Model View Controller framework is designed around a dispatcher servlet that handles all the HTTP requests and response. It's not mentioned in this particular PDF, but this is just a dispatcher servlet is a sort of front controller. So this is a very important diagram which says that how this entire flow works. So once a request comes from the browser, from the user, then the dispatcher servlet intercepts it, and then it checks the handler mapping configuration. So handler mapping is nothing but to see for this particular mapping which particular controller to configure. So to go to your XML, there is proper request handling. You can define that stuff in the XML, and then there is a request handler mapping classes, etc. inside the Spring MVC jars, which actually stores that information. So dispatcher servlet basically checks with them. So dispatcher servlet checks with the handler mapping about the controller. Dispatcher handler mapping does its work. It checks the URL which you're requesting for, finds the correct URL for you, returns it back to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet then uses that, calls the respective controller, and then a respective controller does all the work, what it is required, and then says to the dispatcher servlet that, sir, this is the hello JSP which I want you to render. And when it comes here and it finds that hello JSP is the one, it sees dispatcher servlet what is the view resolver in the XML file. So depending on that view resolver, it passes that hello word to the view resolver. In our case, it's a very simple view resolver. It just takes that hello, prefixes the path of the location where we have to look for that JSP, and suffixes just the normal .jsp, and you forward it to the view resolver. Now the view resolver does the work, and then it sends the details back to the dispatcher servlet. Now the dispatcher servlet uses that to the actual JSP is there. That's actual. It calls that JSP. Now if you call that JSP, the contents will get created. Whatever is the actual final content that has to be sent over to the browser. Now from there, once this the HTML is obtained, whatever has to be sent back to the browser, that data is returned back to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet encapsulates that data within the HTTP response and sends it back. So this is your entire sequence of events for a particular request which comes in to the Spring MVC application, and this is what I have mentioned below as well. Okay, now we are going to deal it after one or two more practical example if you would have seen, but this is the one which should be your guiding principle towards how the things work. Okay, hope it's clear till now. Guys, are you fine? Guys, I need yes, no, maybe, whatever you think of. please let me know. Okay, so yes, okay, thank you. So this is how the so this is Spring MVC